Armani was anguished and anxious. On the one hand, the anguish was generated by a mixture of two other feelings that Armani has been through. She felt deep in her heart guilt and fear. Guilt because at this point for Armani, it was a fact that her heart and spirit belonged to Jake. And yet, she had to pretend before Brandon, who was not a bad man. The fear was a consequence of questions. Could Florence be right? Maybe I don't have it. Maybe I don't have what it takes to be in charge of anything, much less a kingdom, Armani thought, as he paced back and forth inside her room. I may not even have the courage to face what's going on or what's going to come my way when Jake and I have to face our relationship in front of more than millions of people, two kingdoms. This scares me too much. The fact that I'm not strong enough, or at least I feel that I'm not strong enough, and then he rejects me. These are my anxieties that I am expressing, but I know that there's a side of me that harness great power and strength. The only thing that achieved harmony or will achieve harmony in my mind was the feelings that I feel for Jake and for us to be together. In fact, I was very anxious about my next encounter with Jake. The realities were different, separate, and it was still some time before both of this can come into a reality. I could openly give and vent my feelings. However, for the moment, our meetings alone were the closest things to paradise for me and him. Who longed for those moments? Armani knew that perhaps her grandmother would show up if he stayed in that room, giving off anguish and other mixed feelings. And although she always wanted to talk to her grandmother, she never knew when her grandmother would pop up somewhere unexpectedly, being that she's in spirit. This was not the case, as Armani felt she had chaos swarming around in her head of confusion and not wanting to disappoint her grandmother, not to sympathize with the decisions that were rooted in Armani's mind. On the contrary, perhaps a meeting with Isabel would add more anguish and more guilt, and Armani did not need any more of that. So she decided to go outside to serenade herself in the vicinity of the house. Isabel almost always appeared when Armani was either very happy or very sad. Although this was not a certain thing, since Isabel acted as her spiritual guide, so she could appear at any time if that was what she wanted. Outside of everything was quiet and serene. Armani walked through the garden and stopped. When she was about 20 meters away from her house, she sat down on the grass, somewhat spoiled by the humidity generated by the weather changes, looked at the sky, closing her eyes, let out a deep and prolonged sigh. She urgently sought to occupy her thoughts. On the other hand, that could not distress her too much, but found it difficult. A shiver ran through her entire body with such force of a strong gaze, and a set of high pitched shrieks made her open her eyes only to give away to one of the worst images that Armani's brain had even registered in her entire life up to this moment. A totally dark, sinister creature, at most 1 meter tall, and with very sparse hair that revealed a battered and beaten skull, was smiling while maintaining a twisted gesture. It looked very evil. The screeches were generated by a group of crows that held the small, dark creature in the air. Undoubtedly, the crows were like the one Amani had seen at Brandon's palace, way, way in the cathedral ceilings. Hello, Armani. What are you doing here? You came here looking to run from your problems, your anxieties, didn't you? Asked that disgusting creature as it laughed loudly. It had an evil grin. It danced erratically around Armani. The crows had released the creature out of a dark cave it seemed to come. It had taken to flying around as if it was standing guard. Armani's mouth hung open, his expression stricken by the sinister and absurd reality before his eyes, and he was speechless. What's the matter, Armani? Have you become mute? You don't like my presence, perhaps? The creature kept showing a mocking and very unpleasant attitude. Its yellow, creepy looking eyes danced, as did its whole tiny, dynamic body. I'm sorry. Where are my manners? I know, but you don't know me. My name is. Do you really want to know my name? My name is Patrick. Yeah, let's just say my name is Patrick. The trick in Patrick? I can be very tricky, and I'm a torment by race. As the saying goes, Patrick is my human name so that you can better remember me. But I reside deep in the mountains. I come from the caves deep within. I have the ability to be able to read in your mind. This ability I was granted to me. This is an ability that was granted to me from the underworld. Can you imagine me reading your mind? I can discern everything that afflicts you, distresses you, or make you feel horrible in any way, allowing me to use it against you until I manage to plunge you into the deepest of miseries, all using your own inner demons. Isn't it beautiful? You can call me a trickster, but call me Patrick. Raised the volume of his cursed laughter and generated more mute and repressed anguish in Armani's eyes, who trembled, choked screams of dread, and held back tears in his eyes. The torment, taking advantage of the partial paralysis it generated in its prey, approached her and began to whisper things in her ear, feeling the cold breath. You are betraying Brandon, the one who fully trusts you to win the difficulties of the two kingdoms. Well, now, your secret is safe with me. Fret not. Think about sleeping with a fallen angel vampire. What do you think? Do you really think that a guy who belongs to one of the best fallen angels in the whole kingdom of Ebom is going to notice a good or nothing like you? Please get your place, one where you don't give so much grief and embarrassment to others. Patrick continued to make these types of comments, trying to belittle Armani. But something in Armani was changing. His expression of deep terror was disappearing, and its place was a tremendous rage. He put his hands to his eyes and wiped away the tears that were beginning to run down her cheek. Damn it! Why does everyone oppose what I really want? My grandmother, the whispering tree in the magical garden, and now this spawn from hell. Armani had stood up, very powerful, and looked this evil beast in the eyes. He finished his sentence. She impacted a kick with force on the tiny tormentor's torso. The latter rose with the impact, fell hard to the ground, and rolled a few feet away from Armani. Listen to me well. I may seem helpless to you, but my feelings are authentic. You don't know who you're messing with. Don't underestimate me, Armani says. Your words do not faze me one bit. You won't be able to hurt me or to discourage me, but you will find yourself submitting to me no matter what you say. The time is near. I have predestined power, and I can destroy you with one blow, one breath of wind. So be careful of what you're saying to me, you ugly creature. I am Armani, and I will be the queen sitting next to Brandon, bringing the two kingdoms together. And you will be under my feet, and I will squash you like the roach that you are. The crows who were patrolling the surroundings began to fly away, one by one. Patrick looked at Armani with surprise as his lips were trembling. He was slowly fading out. He realized that he had no power against Armani. There was a spiritual silhouette. It was Armani's grandmother who was smiling and resting her hand on the shoulder of her brave granddaughter proudly. Once the torment loses the power of mental manipulation through his hurtful comments, based on the conflicts he reads in the minds of his prey, he becomes completely useless, unable to even throw a punch, defeated and abandoned by the crows. Patrick slowly fades away backwards, and every step Armani takes forward toward him until he manages to stand up and run at full speed, panting until he gets lost in the grove of trees closest to his position. Armani remains silent for a few seconds, looking around erect and with her serious nature on her face. She then collapses to the ground on her knees, and with her palms raised in the air, to her God outstretched on the ground, she begins to cry. She was sure of what she had said and very confident in making her point. But it did feel like this great power that has come over her that she's never felt before. She was proud of herself for having defeated the evil torment, but she couldn't stop the whirlwind of emotions from wreaking havoc on her mood negatively. If only a little, if only after a few minutes, Amani stood up. Enough! I can't let this defeat me. That demon's attempt to put me down will not have an effect on me. I will go home and seek rest. Tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow I will see Jake, the kingdom of Ebon. Jake was returning to the kingdom where surely his sister Emily would still be waiting for him to continue dictating what for her was her brother's destiny and the duty he had to fulfill at all costs. But Jake didn't care about that anymore, and he was sure that he could ignore his sister's hurtful words for the joy of enthusiasm that has his talk with James generated him were stronger than Emily's evil intentions. Jake continued walking through the grove back to his home when he comes up upon the bleeding carcasses of a couple of deer in his path. It was impossible for him not to think about feeding at his vampire lineage was screaming at him to do so, but something inside him didn't want to and was screaming at him that he didn't need to. But the desire became stronger of him to suck the blood of the carcasses, and he approached the dead creatures. Jake had stopped as he ingested human blood a long time ago, but this one knew, for if they found out, he would be judged eternally by the people of his kingdom and could even be exiled from Ebon. Now he was beginning to think, even the blood from animals are still beasts. Still, Jake sucked every last bit of the blood from these animals. He gained no pleasure, satisfaction, or glory from doing so. It was a deep urge within him that at the time or moment he couldn't control. He began to experience mild stomach pains, nausea, and severe headache. What was wrong with me? I'm a fallen angel, slowly turning into a vampire, and I know I had urges, but why is this working against my body? This shouldn't be causing me these physical effects. He kept saying out loud to himself. Jake had an idea what was going on, but it seemed a little too absurd to be true. No, I don't think so. Although if it were, it would be perfect, he said to himself, and again, and continued on his way home. Once there, as he approached his sister's room next to his, He slowed down and began to move, tiptoeing. The door to his sister's room was ajar, and unable to help himself, he stopped to look. Emily was standing at the window, and coincidentally at the moment, a group of 10 crows were arriving one by one, perching all over the room except for the two of them, who stopped on the raised forearms of their mistress, goddess, witch Emily. They began to whisper various sounds, as if they were speaking a different language, whispering in her ear. Jake did not understand this cryptid language, but he could notice that Emily's face was filling with anger quickly. After a few seconds, she lost control. Damn it! Stupid Armani! She's becoming a real pain. A real pain. James' heart and mind flipped. Jake's heart and mind flipped as he heard those words. Armani! Damn! What is it? What is Emily up to? And what would she do to Armani? Jake made a superhuman effort to burst into the room and confront his sister, for now it was not time. I knew it! That useless Patrick couldn't redeem himself for me. He can die or whatever. He's of no use to me anymore, Emily was saying, full of fury and unable to stop pacing the whole room, hysterical. Even the crows were taking their distance from her, not knowing how Emily would lash out. As their eyes seemed to burn with flames, Jake slowly walked away from the door and headed for his room with more questions than answers. Damn, how far is it my sister capable of going to accomplish her goals? She sees me as a chip, a pawn in her game whom she can manipulate at her pleasure. She was beginning to consider that his sister might actually be his number one enemy. It was hard for him to think that. This was his sister. Family. I thought blood was thicker than water. But not so with Emily. Emily is my number one enemy. Thinking about this, but with the powerful satisfaction that later that day, he would see his beloved Armani and be able to tell her everything that had happened to him since they last saw each other. Inevitably, though, Emily would again interrupt his pleasant thoughts to turn them murky and distressing. Those crows whispered something to Emily that upset her very much, that had to do with Armani and a certain creature, trickery, monster named Patrick. Who the hell is Patrick? Or what the hell is it? And what does he have to do with Armani? Jake managed to fall asleep as he laid there with all sorts of thoughts going through his head, with many disturbing doubts, wondering what was his sister, the witch, the evil witch, is up to next. Armani did not utter a word. Jake had to understand, for what was flashing before his eyes was not easy to digest. Armani was facing infinities of jumbled thoughts in which her grandmother's warnings played a predominant role. She listened repeatedly in her head to her grandmother, Isabel. Her words simply rang through over and over again, while watching her beloved looking like an imposing, dark angel, even possibly a demon, taking care of those men. Her experience with his shadow side moved her. It startled her. You'd better speak up. I doubt it's necessary to make it clear to you what I'm capable of, said Jake to one of the men as he held him by the neck, alleviating, choking him. The guy thought about confronting this demon. Even his looks seemed defiant, even being in that situation. However, Jake noticed this and applying more strength in his hand in which he held that subject. He directed an intense gaze towards the man, who immediately felt indestructible. Shivers of his momentary bravery disappeared. Florence, Mistress Florence, asked us to give Miss Armani a scare. She wants to get her away from young Brandon. Although I think that's kind of obvious. Only she's losing her patience already. Lately, she's been too strange. She doesn't seem to be herself. It's like she's under a spell, manifested that man a second before receiving a punch in the nose that left him unconscious. It's the least you deserve because now you were cooperative. But if I hadn't arrived on the scene, who knows what you would have done? Really? Who knows what you would have done with my beloved? As Jake eyes turned red, getting intense. It's as if he's even growling, turning to look at the others who seem to be standing, looking straight at hell, looking like the devil himself. These men began to run for their lives. Jake came down from his light leviation. He was levitating in the air, floating with nothing under his feet. He began to concentrate a small spear of dark energy on the palm of his left hand. Jake, no! Stop, please! Armani intervened in Jake's actions, holding her wrist. She wasn't looking him in the eyes. Jake noticed and somewhat saddened. He undid his attack and lowered his guard, letting the men escape, plunged into the deepest of horrors. Whatever, I highly doubt they would dare to continue to do evil after seeing me so close in my true form. Jake expressed, staring at Armani, searching her with his gaze. Your true form. What do you mean by that, Jake? Asked Armani, unable to stop a tear from starting to run down his left cheek. Tell me, who was the person I was with all this time, for whom I stood up even to my grandmother? Who is my guide, my companion, and my family? Armani couldn't take it anymore and burst into tears. Armani, please listen to me. Jake approached Armani, and to his surprise, Armani didn't reject him. She just held He held her hands to her face as she let out her tears. I know I've acted badly, but I asked you to please understand me. It's not easy for me either. We belong to different worlds, very different worlds. The circumstances is our present, or rather, obstacles that hinder us from the natural desire to be together. For we love each other, and that cannot be changed. Armani, please, please look at me. Jake wasn't crying, but his voice was cracking, just as Armani had sworn. His heart was breaking. She lifted her gaze and focused on Jake. The fallen angel heart seemed to have revived after Armani brought her hands up to her, touched his face, and directed a smile at him. I must be a fool, but I don't feel like you've changed, Jake. Yes, your appearance is different, but what you transmit to me, what your eyes dictate to me when I see them, has not diminished in the least. Quite the contrary. I feel with greater intensity that the feeling that has made me face so many things just to be with you. I risk it all for you, Armani said. I'm managing to make tears now run down the cheeks of the prince of the underworld. Yes, however, she added, getting Jake's full attention, I must be strong. Jake, I must be strong to face my destiny, even if it hurts my heart and soul. Listen to what I have to tell you, she added, as Jake held her by the waist, and by just a gesture and a look told her without words to trust him. Immediately after, the prince began to fly slowly, heading to the top of the beautiful tree, where he asked Armani to continue expressing herself. Besides my grandmother, who is my guide, my family, my friend, there is another spirit that I usually think of and also trust. It was my grandmother who made me aware of the existence of my great aunt Nuru, who was a warrior queen. I have not had the joy of being visited by her, but perhaps one day I will be worthy of her spiritual presence, Armani said. As she expressed herself, Jake despaired. I'm sorry, Armani, but I'm not afraid. And I can't understand you, he added, hurrying on. I am destined to be a warrior. Jake, a queen, a woman who must take charge of her kingdom. This is my destiny, and I cannot change it. What I want to tell you is that I must marry Brandon. Our crazy dream of running away together and being happy turns out to be too selfish to carry out. I couldn't be happy knowing that I betrayed so many people. Yes, I would be with you, but at what price? Armani found herself making a superhuman effort not to cry. Jake was staring at her. He made a move to answer, but was interrupted. No! These words, this decision, and the resolution of my conviction have nothing to do with you showing me your true form. This reality you are showing me only confirms that what I feel for you is genuine, Jake, Armani said, resting her hands on Jake's face and kissing him. Jake, who was comfortable feeling his beloved hands on his face, so tender, a gentle touch, was disturbed by the presence of unwanted beings. At first, he felt it as an unpleasant sensation that he quite got confused or he quite didn't understand. Then he became aware of the sinister presence of the pair of evil crows staring at them. He felt the presence of the dark, evil, wing light beast. Their heads were tilted sideways in disarray, analyzing, evaluating, and detailing each moment to then deliver a detailed report of the events to his wicked sister Emily. Covering Armani with his chest, Jake threw a small but very fast spear of energy towards the crow. With a powerful throw, who were not fast enough to dodge it, the crows' bodies fell lifeless to the ground, while Jake looked at them with deep hatred. Those were crows. Something not right with them, Jake. They were in Brandon's house. Armani was starting to get desperate. Armani, calm down. Maybe you haven't had time to think about it since you just found out about my origin, but I know who those crows belong to. In this kingdom, they are just that, crows. But in Ebon, they are creatures of evil, mostly led by one person, Emily, my sister, expressed Jake, who had decided to establish truth as his only form of expression towards his beloved. From the moment he had to show her his true form, Armani felt silent again, somewhat perplexed at Jake's words. She couldn't stop staring into his eyes as a flood of thoughts hit her. The crows, those strange crows, so recurrent lately in my life, did they come from Ebon? This leads me to some conclusion that perhaps hasty, but that I can't entirely rule out, thinks Armani, who quickly comes back to reality. Jake answers me with complete honesty. Can we talk from now on with the truth always up front? Armani was undisturbed. Jake, without saying anything, nodded his head, showing an expression that gave Armani to understand that he didn't want to keep saying words, and he had decided to show it. Jake, those crows were in Brandon's mansion. He ignored them, and so did Florence. But there was something different. I never said anything, but I felt those crows symbolize a bad omen. The way Florence started acting when these crows began to recur was a little strange, although her hatred for me remained the same. Armani stared into the void, turning her head sideways, thinking, tying up loose ends. Don't give it too much thought, Armani. It's about my sister, Emily. Her purpose are horrible. She wants Lam's kingdom. She wants to end Brandon at any cost, the both of you, at any cost. That's what she wants. For her, the union of Econ and Lam is indispensable. That would be a great increase of difficulty in her plans, Jake said as he noticed that there were no more crows spying. Armani sinks back into his thoughts, reviewing what Jake had said to her, but quickly comes to a resolution. Jake, please, let's go. Ashore, she asked her beloved. He just looked at her and agreed. Armani, Jake, no. What you just told me only strengthened my resolve for you. You just revealed to me the name of the enemy of Econ and Lam, of me and Brandon, of my arranged marriage. And not only that, but that enemy is your own flesh and blood. She is your sister, Jake. The cries calls to Armani's heart again, but this time she doesn't respond. Somehow, Armani sought to impose on herself the warrior queen, courage her destiny demand of her. I'm sorry, Jake, believe me. You will have no idea how sorry I am, but today's revelation made it a little clear that what I must do next. I don't know how I'm going to put it off, but I'm going to face the crows, the evil, sinister, dark, ugly, treacherous birds your sister has sent our way. All adversity I will bring about the union of Econ and Lam. Even if I don't love him, I will marry Brandon. We are stronger together. I will achieve prosperity for my kingdom and I will protect it. And that is my destiny. And it is a noble one. After I have achieved it, believe me, that if there is even the slightest chance that we will be together, even if it's risky, I will take that risk. You hear me? I will take that risk. I will marry Brandon. Look at me, Jake. If by then you still love me, nothing would make me happier, Jake. E-Bomb's fallen angel just listened. The angel of darkness, attentively listening to Armani, standing firmly, looking deep into her eyes. Armani turned and gave a smile full of different shades of feelings. Then the future queen of the union of the two kingdoms continued on her way. Armani, yelled Jake, fists tightly clenched and standing firm. Armani stopped and waited without turning to look at him. I love you, and I will as long as I can keep breathing. I will be patient, Armani, my beloved, Jake said, with decision in his voice. Without hesitation, Armani's heart went full circle and brought calm to his spirit, flashing a smile that Jake couldn't see. She replied, I love you too, Jake. And I hope your words are as sincere as mine. Armani kept walking until she was lost from Jake's sight. Both souls in love have different missions. Their paths parted, and in their hearts grieved reigned supreme. But there were matters to take care of. Armani headed for Brandon's castle, and whom he had much to talk about. For his part, Jake returned to Ebom, where he was to face his sister, to seriously reprimand her. The prince had come to drastic conclusion. My beloved's purpose is noble and honorable. Emily, on the other hand, represents only evil and selfishness. Our kingdom does not need power and slavery. Ebon does not need Lam. Ebon needs to be purged of so much evil. But to be honest, I don't think I'm capable of changing the nature of a kingdom that has been like this for over thousands of years, even before my birth. I can shift my direction. Even though I'm a fallen angel, I do feel that there is light that reigns inside me because of my love for Amani. My sister has cruel intentions. The prince was determined as never before, flying a full speed as the dark angel, his black wings flying in the wind, headed towards home. As always, Armani was received very kindly, even before getting out of her carriage, parked right in front of Brandon's palace, the palace of the king, the future king. She was approached by several of Brandon's servants who escorted her to where he was. Armani advanced, guided by the servants, but her mind was not there, only her body. Her thoughts were hovering around the reality she had chosen and questioning if it is, if this is the right thing, the right decision she is making. Of course, this is not a decision that comes from her heart. She desires to please her family. Most of all, she desires to save her people. Of course, it's the right thing to do, even if that decision is eating her deep inside. This is the reality. I can't sacrifice Econ's future just to follow my heartbeat, just to follow what I feel inside in my heart. If fate decides to be good to me, in the not too distant future, I'll be able to reunite with my love, with Jake, when being together won't mean so many problems, she thought, arriving at the meeting with Brandon. Armani, as always, it is good to see you. Please, please, come, have a seat, Brandon said, pointing to the chair with his finger. Armani smiled slightly, almost out of obligation, and without realizing it, Brandon noticed but decided not to comment on it. Tell me, what have you been up to, my darling Armani? Asked Brandon. To which Armani replied with housework. Because, see, that's what you do if you want to be a wife, right? Armani was only patronizing Brandon, as she thought to herself. Armani has a plan. It may appear that she wants to be only a wife, but deep down inside, her goal is to become a very powerful queen. She wants to liberate her kingdom. Her main desire is to bring prosperity to her people. Yeah. Among other not very special activities. Wow, what a difference in what I've been doing. Well, as you know, my father is in bed and he's been very sick, gravely ill. Basically, I've had to be at the helm of one kingdom while I've been in another. But I'm not complaining, as soon Econ will be part of Lamb and vice versa. My efforts will have been worth it, Brandon stated with some pride. He looked at Armani, who had lost his gaze toward the window after nodding his head at everything Brandon had said. The warrior lost a little stability of his nerves. Armani, I'm not stupid, and I know that you don't love me. The little that hid the fact that ours will be an arranged marriage was us together in love. Brandon said, his tone soft but obviously annoyed as well as disappointed. Armani seemed to have come back to the reality after hearing those words. His expression was one of denial and a bit of guilt, but just as Brandon lost his cool a bit, Armani lost the will to continue pretending and, in the midst of apologizing, decided to speak very clearly to his fiancé. Brandon, I must tell you that you are an exemplary man, committed and honorable, but the truth has no half measures. It's stark and blunt. Let's be frank, Brandon. You know that I don't love you, and you know it very well. Why go on pretending something we both know? It's pathetic. Both you and I have the same compelling reasons and goals for carrying out this arranged marriage. The unification of both kingdoms for the sake of one, and the rise in power of both. Econ and Lam united equals the birth of a great power and the salvation of the many oppressed women of Econ, the people, my nation. They don't deserve to be in need anymore. And I will see to that, hand in hand with you, a man of great principles who knows that he wants and is willing to achieve it. See, I admire you, Brandon, but I don't love you. And this I need to be clear about. We must focus on the main purpose at hand, which is to unify our kingdoms to bring prosperity, abundance to all for the sake of millions. Armani did not stutter, and Brandon's voice did not crack at any point. His eyes, the stare that he had among Armani, his expression was extremely attentive. Brandon analyzed the conviction in Armani's attitude and words, leaving him without much to say. Very good, Armani. You're beginning to speak like a dignified and powerful queen. Perhaps you are beginning to be liked by my mother. Here, these are some of the wedding dresses. Take your pick. Slow down, Brandon. Let's get something clear, darling. Brandon, soon to be king. What I'm not going to do is wear your mother's second hand wedding dresses. You got to be kidding me. No, Brandon. My wedding dress is going to be the most beautiful wedding dress ever. And just because you don't love me, what you're not going to do is give me your mother's second-hand throwaways. Do I make myself clear? Brandon looked at Armani and really, actually, underestimated Armani. Okay, very well, as you desire. Of course, it's going to be your choice. This powerful arrangement we will have, called marriage, will be celebrated by all very soon. I need you here, Armani, and I need you by my side. We don't know how fate will go when it involves our love for one another. You say that you don't love me now, and you truly don't know the depths of my heart. But if you want to believe that I don't love you, maybe that's not important at this time, being that our people will be liberated soon as we unite together as one kingdom. And maybe our focus can only be at this time on uniting together as a powerful kingdom. So I will put my emotions and my feelings on the back burner for now. Now that I clearly know your position and where you stand, your sole purpose is to liberate the people, the women, the children, all, and to bring prosperity, good health, then let it be so. Now, I must also warn you as well, we will come up against many trials and tribulations. We will fight against the darkness, the powers of the underworld. There will be war, there will be sacrifice. But remember, Armani, always we must stick together. We must work together. Outside on the branch of a tree very close to the window, the cold eyes of crows admired the scene Armani noticed. The crow took flight immediately afterwards. Armani thought to herself, Jake, where is my beloved Jake? Where are you right now? Hundreds of miles away from Brandon's palace, the Prince of Ebon flies at full speed towards the royal castle. A creature of short stature, long hubs, sinister, and very green eyes sees him pass by. The fallen angel, covered, threadbare clothes and a cloak, turns around and reveals a raven perched on his forearm. After the strange fellow said a few words in code to the raven, it disappeared, leaving only the trail of a shadow. Jake had arrived at his castle. He starts to run in the direction of his sister's office and burst in, kicking the door. Emily, there you are. I was afraid I wouldn't find you here, Jake said, possessed by fury, eyes fiery red. Why, brother? You look so agitated. Has something happened? Emily was on her back, surrounded by crows, looking out the window at the creatures of Econ's realm, living their lives. She asked that question using a very sweet tone. Please, Emily, spare me your pathetic performances. How far the hell are you capable of going? Do you intend to manipulate God Himself, if necessary, to achieve your damn ambition? Jake had clenched his fist and was walking in the direction of his sister. His eyes seemed to have burst into flames, and his wings were gradually fluttering, messing up some potions, books, and instruments of chemicals, herbs, poisonous. This was Emily's large office. It looked as though she was some scientist or something. God, wow, wow, Jake. The name is very rarely uttered in this realm. Don't you discuss yourself, Jake? Listen to you. Speaking of God, you're a fallen angel. Seems like God kicked you out. And soon to be turned vampire. If I have anything to do with it, Jake, for you there is no God. You were rejected. For you, there is nothing but the evil that has kept our race alive for so many years above the human cockroaches. Finish, understand? Yelled Emily, turning around and beginning to leviate off the ground a little. The crows began to screech, loud, hindering Jake's walking. As he was putting his hands over his ears, the sound was too powerful. Jake crunched down and fell to his knees. I'm going to stop you, Emily. I won't let you interfere with Armani's mission. Many people will die because of your damn ambition and your whims. People who have nothing to do with Ebon and its evil nature, Jake said, making an effort to keep moving forward. The prince managed to endure. Shrill sounded in his ears, which began to bleed, ignoring the indescribable pain in uttering a war cry. Jake lashed at his sister, being stopped by at least 25 ravens that tackled his body from head to toe. Get your filthy, stinking hands off my back, Emily. Face me alone, Jake said in frustration. Listen, you pathetic idiot. Are you really going to put your hands on me? Look at you. You're not a man. You're pathetic. You can do better, Jake. You need to pick on someone more powerful. Or maybe I'm more powerful, Jake. Is that why you are coming at me? Well, my crows will take care of me. And if I have to, Jake, I will call my blood sucking bats. Keep it up. I will have you on your knees in no time. I will have you crawling and bowing down to me. Do you understand me? Ebon will be mine. I will be the ruler. Jake took a very deep sigh. You've always been under the slight impression that you think my crows only knows how to spy for me, but you couldn't be more wrong, expressed Emily, insinuating her gaze on her brother and snapped her fingers. Immediately, about 5 crows approached Jake in a frenzy and began to attack him. The creatures used their claws to damage the prince's body. Inside Emily's office, there was no escape. I'm sorry, Jake, but I warned you. I told you to finish off Brandon, the king, soon to be king, and you could have kept your human, if that's what you want to call her. Now I have to take care of everything myself because you're a pathetic wimp, Emily stated. She does really intend to kill me. Do you really intend to kill your own brother? Thought Jake. Does she? Is she capable of that? While directing a look of deep sadness to his sister, which could be seen through the gloomy black feathers of the winged beast in Emily's service.